Good evening, everyone. I'd like to welcome everybody here tonight, committee on urban redevelopment. April 28th. I'm Councilman Narducci. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Chairwoman Harris is absent. Vice Chairman Narducci,
Here.
Councilman Correa,
Present.
Councilwoman Costello,
Present.
and Councilman Espinal.
Present.
We have one present, one absent. You have a quorum.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. And we're going to start, before I hand it over to Emily, I'm going to ask that Kyle give us an update on the board accounts. Have you been able to reach all the council people?
Co-chairman, I was able to reach 13 out of the 15. We are still outstanding 2 board projects.
Get, make sure they know how important it is, obviously, to have, because I know you try to reach numerous times.
Yeah, I will continue outreach and I'll do what I can to get those securities out.
The last meeting, you just extend your hand up. The last meeting, I had asked about the vacant properties and home repair lending loans, like I do every year. And Emily said that she had an update for us, and as promised, Emily has an update for us. So at this point in time, I'm going to hand it over to Emily and state your name and position for the record, please.
Good evening, everyone. Emily Friedman, Director of the Division of Housing and Community Development within the Department of Planning and Development. I'm pleased to join you again this evening to present the proposed CDBG budget on behalf of Mayor Alorza and provide an update on our activities related to vacant properties and
Everybody has
home
it.
care lending. Yes.
So,
There is a presentation and an overview of slides that were provided in advance of this meeting for the review of by the public as well as the members of the committee. As an overview, since 2015, we've made a collective investment goal of eliminating vacant and abandoned property in the city of Providence and preventing further vacancy. So to further that goal, we as a city have developed a suite of tools to rehab vacant and abandoned properties and protect, restore, and renew neighborhoods by bringing abandoned properties back into productive reuse. Since 2015, overall, in totality, over 790 properties have been brought back online. And by that, we mean violations have been abated and those properties have been determined to be reoccupied. In total, that means about 100 remain on our radar as a city for required intervention. It's important to note that a portion of these may be pending sale or may have rehab underway, i.e. might have active permit or MLS listed. Of that 100, there is a limited percentage where they still need tools identified. There isn't sort of an action plan in place, and that's really the to-do list from here. So when we talk about these tools, what are we referring to? Basically 4 main buckets. Policy changes, which are protocols put in place, policies put in place by city departments, mainly our Department of Inspections and Standards, our code enforcement officials, and our housing court prosecution unit. So this is more proactive code enforcement and policies such as transfer affidavits, and more proactive housing court prosecution and establishment of procedures to hold any parties in the chain of title accountable for the state of a property if it's a hazard to the neighborhood. One of those other tools is receivership, which are court-appointed attorneys with development experience who can help to clear title, resolve estate issues, and help facilitate redevelopment. The third tool really has been our special redevelopment plan through our Providence Redevelopment Agency and associated construction lending through the Providence Housing Trust. And then finally, tonight, I'm hoping to speak with you all around the financial assistance tools that we've developed that help to address vacant and abandoned properties as well as prevent vacancy. So the CDBG funded tools that you see recommended for further funding in the budget before you. In addition to those the home repair program, the redevelopment subsidy for vacant and abandoned property. We also have a down payment assistance program to help folks purchase homes in our neighborhoods. And the Lead Safe Providence program, which is funded through a competitive grant through HUD, which helps us to abate lead-based paint hazards in substandard housing in the city. And of course, it's also important to note that there are market forces which thankfully over the recent years have also worked to bolster our work. We've had a housing market that is on an upswing as opposed to a downswing, which of course helps to promote redevelopment. So again, my goal tonight is to provide you with a focused update on two key CDBG funded tools to prevent or resolve substandard conditions. This is our home repair lending program, which enables Providence residents to maintain their housing, not lose their homes or have those homes fall into disrepair. And the redevelopment subsidy we use to fill financial gaps for particularly challenging vacant properties that have been vacant for a number of years. Since 2015, we've been funding at various levels a home repair lending program. This is a loan program that enables us to offer deferred payment, 0% interest loans up to $25,000 to low and moderate income homeowners to make repairs such as roofing, electrical, and to correct code and safety violations. These loans have helped us keep homeowners in their homes and prevent additional properties from becoming vacant and abandoned due to fire, loss of insurance, or uninhabitable conditions. So we continue to receive really a tremendous number of applications for assistance. And this is a result of enhanced coordination and referrals between Housing Court, the Department of Inspection and Standards, our Senior Services Office, the City Council Constituent Services Office, Mayor's Center Services, Mayor's Center for City Services, and then our other area partners who are aware of the program. So our Community Action Partnership of Providence, Rhode Island Housing, and other agencies. So since 2015, our investment has enabled us to approve loans to 104 addresses. And we should be able to assist another 10 addresses by the end of this fiscal year with the funds we have now. So through this financial assistance, this equates to a total of 174 units of housing, occupied housing that were or are being brought up to what we define as federal housing quality standards. Restoring these properties to a condition where they're habitable and there are no code violations. Across the loan portfolio, we've had 72% participation by BIPOC homeowners, and the average loan size has been approximately $15,000. So with the $245,000 line item proposed, that will serve an approximately 16 more households. So we did a breakdown graphic of the types of repairs that folks most commonly apply for. You'll see overwhelmingly, and this may be no surprise, with construction costs on the rise, about 66% of the loans we've issued have been for roofs. Failing roofs where folks are at risk of losing their homeowner's insurance, have leaks, have lead violations as a result of the leak. And then the balance has been a mix of electrical improvements, window replacements, energy efficiency, failed heating systems. Lately, we've had an uptick in failed sewer lines, which is a very expensive and very stressful repair to have to make, and then other miscellaneous repairs. We did a breakdown across our various neighborhoods of where our applicants are coming from. And of course, this aligns well with the neighborhoods and wards that we know are our lowest income. So we are drawing from a variety of our neighborhoods, and participants are coming from our lowest income neighborhoods. In terms of redevelopment subsidy for vacant and abandoned property, this is a strategic investment of federal funds to rehab, demolish, or redevelop vacant and abandoned properties once they're already in vacancy to support viable redevelopment as either affordable housing or a community space or amenity. So we continue to use CDBG funds really as a critical tool to enable the substantial rehab of these vacant blighted properties for affordable home ownership or rental housing. demolition, if the properties are unsalvageable and are a hazard to the neighborhood and community, and for environmental mitigation. So often soil remediation due to lead, asbestos, or spills and tanks associated with substandard property. So many of these properties that we've identified as vacant and abandoned with violations are in such poor condition that development subsidy is necessary for these properties to be rehabbed and for that redevelopment to pencil out, so shall we say. Subsidies also needed if we're going to enable those properties to be redeveloped as affordable housing. So if we're providing a discounted sale price or discounted rents in order for it to be affordable for low and moderate income residents, that means that deeper subsidy is needed to get that deal to pencil out. So our CDBG investment that we've been making has helped us to ensure affordability as well as a community benefit. There is an additional graphic showing where we have made these investments in vacant and abandoned properties and the number of units that have been either gut rehabbed or newly constructed, demolished and newly constructed. And so these are deed restricted affordable units or community spaces. This is a range of rental properties, home ownership units throughout a variety of neighborhoods in the city. And with the $245,000 line item proposed, we anticipate additional 2 to 3 addresses from that to-do list mentioned earlier that we can address, create as permanent affordable housing, either rental or home ownership. Again, this is an ongoing initiative. For the council, you really are, the experts on your neighborhood, and so you are often the first to know if there's a problem property. So certainly, please continue to liaise with city staff or notify city staff if there are problem properties in your neighborhood that potentially could be becoming vacant and abandoned or are vacant and abandoned and not yet on our radar. Amanda DeGrace, our director of real estate, is a good staff contact if you have concerns about any particular properties. We are continuing our field inspections of these properties to see if rehab is underway, permits are ongoing, is the work getting done, and taking the necessary steps through either housing court use of procedures or others to ensure that that work is happening and it's happening on a timely basis. We are updating, of course, the build data constantly on whether or not there are building permits in place, what's going on in housing court, is the property listed for sale, has it sold, is it occupied? As we look at sort of the to-do list of what's remaining, we really are prioritizing those properties that are located near schools, parks, playgrounds, those that lend themselves as affordable housing, those that have a big impact on the community. So we're really trying to be strategic in where we make investments and making sure that we bring those back online as quickly as possible. And again, it's always helpful to hear from council members if any particular properties are concerned.
I know that more applicants than funding.
Yes.
So how do you choose who gets the funding or who doesn't get the funding?
Sure. So we've had a well-established policy that we publish on our website that we, at this point, prioritize first on the basis of emergency. So if you are in a dire state of emergency where your property is potentially not habitable, you've lost heat in the dead of January, you move to the front of the list. Otherwise, you're processed in the order in which you contact us. So we maintain a wait list of non-emergencies and we work through that wait list as funds permit. But of course, it's always, even without being well advertised, the list and the need is tremendous. And that's where there's a recommendation in our comprehensive housing strategy, as well as through the ARPA dollars, to think about expanding these offerings further, because we know that the depth of need is there and the data supports it.
Now, once you guys give the loans to a property, how do you follow up on it to make sure that they are doing what they're supposed to be doing and the reason why we see the loan? So we don't just provide cash to homeowners. Because it's federally funded and for purchasing reasons, we assist in the bid process. We help them obtain bids from pre-qualified contractors who are qualified to work on federally funded jobs. We also have in-house inspectional staff who help to develop the scope of work, help to put it out to bid, and then ensure that the work is done
properly. We then, oversee and make sure that there's any warranty issues, any workmanship issues that come up, that they're addressed properly. So we ensure that the loan funds that are provided are used for the eligible purpose under the CDBG program. And then we obviously monitor, because we place a lien on the property and have a mortgage interest in the property, we require you to maintain your property. And if you sell, transfer, or need to refinance and take cash out, or you otherwise default on the mortgage, then we recover those dollars and they go back into our CDBG pot for another eligible use.
Thank you. That's gonna be my next question. Any committee members have any questions for Emily at this time? Yes, well.
Thank you. Let me just elaborate a little bit more on that. So if everything goes well, do they have to pay this money back to the giver, or it's
So the program now, we've done a little fine tuning, and what the model we found that works really well is a due upon sale or transfer model. So it's deferred payment. So for low income clients who can't afford a monthly payment, this is a model that works well. We do eventually recover 100% of our investment. We just recover it at the time of sale, transfer, or if they refinance and take cash out, we get paid. So it saves us on obviously the back office costs of, if we were doing monthly collections, that's a cost of the city and a staffing fee that the city would have to have. Because we're collecting at the time of sale or transfer, it's much less work. And it also doesn't impose a hardship on. We have a lot of seniors who participate around fixed incomes. It'd be very difficult for them to be paying us, $100, $200 a month of debt service.
I'm also glad that there was oversight in regards to help getting the contractors, because you know how terrible that experience that can end up being, especially when you talk about senior citizens.
Yes.
So I'm glad there was some kind of oversight for that to make sure they get the proper service that they need.
Yes, we try to make sure that we have a qualified pool of contractors who, are eligible to work on federally funded work, that they maintain a minimum level of insurance, that they have a good reputation, all the proper licenses, and then we, as well as the Department of Inspection and Standards, make sure that that work was done correctly and that all permits were pulled and that everything is closed out successfully, because we do know that it's, very difficult to.
It's extremely difficult.
Yes, and then, so this is a population we work with seniors and those with disabilities that could very easily be taken advantage of.
And can they contact the office directly themselves?
Yes.
Who should they contact?
Myself, or we have a direct line 680-8400.
You all said,
I am, thank you so much.
thank you. Now, on the recovery funds, they automatically go right back into this particular program.
But we are not at this time. What we are including is when you look at the CDBG budget, there's reallocation of previous CDBG.
That's where,
That's where it's reflected now. Right now, we are not considering or treating it as a revolving loan fund, but it does come back as what's called program income, and it does get reallocated. It's just not specifically to home repair. And one good note I would add is, as we continue to fund this program, the money that cycles back will get bigger and bigger and bigger, because we'll have payments that occur over the years.
any other questions, Emily?
I'm sorry.
No, I'm good.
I'm just wondering why we're not putting more money into it. It's.
There is an
much
ARPA
needed.
allocation recommended to
But I
bolster
think
this.
the ARPA funding, that's good, but that's only now.
Yes, that's certainly a conversation moving forward. This is not a need that's going to go away. And
Exactly.
the data continues to point to that need getting greater. And our comprehensive housing strategy recommends not only continuing and expanding the owner occupied program, but looking at something like rental rehab, looking at senior specific programs, aging in place programs, looking at energy efficiency. So really expanding and branching out these offerings for the certain community needs there.
And again, it all has to do with that. We need so much with the funding coming in with the other. And I know, seems like every year we're getting covered on we're getting less. If it was up to a certain party's beliefs, it would be nowhere to fund it.
So if I may, just concerned about the fixed income senior citizen, I guess a list of violations on his or her property and has no recourse, no resource for that. So I think we should have a good pool of money for scenario like that.
Yes.
Now, we'll point out what the violations are, but we'll also give the resource they need.
Yes, and we've been building those relationships, recognizing that with the housing court judges. They have a stack of my business card that they're giving to folks who present in housing court and have a hardship case. And, you know, no one wants to be jamming somebody up for a situation, you know, a hardship that they're experiencing. So the goal is to try to make those referrals. And we've been really bolstering that relationship. The housing court attorneys in the law department refer routinely, housing court judges refer routinely. Yes, there is a need to further expand, and some of the discussions around the ARPA line item were how do we, you know, look at this issue of code enforcement specifically, and make sure that the folks that are presenting in housing court have a resource to address the violations quickly.
I mean, and maybe moving forward, maybe there's something that a particular line item you can put in the regular city budget to approve it. So we're kind of piggyback on what we're already doing with the other funds.
It's direct resources to the taxpayers.
We, if there's no further questions, we have reached out to our colleagues to find out if anybody had any concerns on the ERRP funding itself. We have not heard back from anybody. We will hope to wrap this week, this budget up tonight and pass it out to the full council for a vote. I'm going to ask Emily advised today, and I want her to give the same voice to the committee why we should hold up for now. Hold it up for a week.
Thank you, Council.
Say,
So as we near the end of our discussions, it's important to note that we to date have been operating with an assumed and estimated allocation figure because there was a delay in the passage of the federal spending bill. So we have not received our final allocations from HUD yet, but we expect them imminently. And by imminently, I mean within days. By statute, they need to notify grantees before May 14th. And rarely does HUD bump up against deadlines. So we may get our allocations as soon as tomorrow. So we have a choice that we need to make. We can utilize the protocols we've already established, and we've done this we did this in 2018, where we proceed with a budget and an ordinance that includes essentially a section 3, a provision, a contingency provision, where if the assumed allocations vary either up or down, we just impose a pro rata adjustment across all line items. So we can proceed with moving the mayor's draft budget into a substitution that reflects an estimated allocation and contains a contingency provision, or we can hold on passage until we receive those final allocations, which again, we may have for we likely will have for the next meeting.
and right now, and I apologize for interrupting, but right now we're in good shape as far as being ahead of the game.
Yes.
As of right now, so it's not going to hurt us at all to wait a week.
So if we pass it out next week, we are technically a week ahead of where we were last year. So again, still on time. So if we hold off a week or two, that will actually enable us to pass this budget, move this budget from draft form into ordinance form with actual final dollar figures. So the benefit there is that if, you know, again, we estimate, we're confident in our estimates, but we're never exactly 100% on. So if we're off, say, 1/3 of 1%, that means if we follow the contingency provision, every line item will get 1/3 of 1% adjustment, which means, you know, you get certain odd amounts and the paperwork gets a little messy, but we've done it, it's been fun. If we're off by, you know, a couple, what translates to tens of thousands of dollars, that actually means by waiting, we potentially could build in, rather than a contingency provision, a contingency activities. So if we find that this allocation is off by about $20,000, $30,000, $10,000, we could discuss if there are other priorities that we want to include, or if there are cuts that need to be made, we can identify which line items could be cut without creating a hardship. Or basically, we could identify a cut that minimizes impact. If we utilize the contingency provision, if we have to make cuts, it would be a cut across every activity. So it's a choice we have to make. As the staff recommendation is that we hold for a week, wait for those final allocations and see, if we come in a little higher or a little lower, and then proceed accordingly. And that way, the line items would remain as whole dollar figures and potentially figure out, where to cut or add that minimizes disruption to the overall budget.
So then, Madam Clerk, if I'm right to say, at this point in time, that all we would have to do is continue the budget, correct?
Yes.
Do we have a date for next week's meeting, Madam Clerk?
I do not have it right now. I can get Cody first thing in the morning, we have it next week. We'll do the date.
Right, 'cause I know the council meeting was changed,
Changed to the 11th now.
so no, next week still,
I know, right now, there's no meetings Monday and finance on Tuesday.
let's get something set up.
So we're for Wednesday or Thursday for next week, 5 o'clock.
Yeah. And Kyle, if you would continue to work on those other two council people,
Absolutely. I will do outreach first thing.
Monday, you need an answer by the next week. Absolutely. With that being said, that if there's no further questions, can I have a motion to adjourn?
So continue.
Motion to continue. I make this matter. Motion to continue by President Pro Tem Esposito, second by Councilman Esposito. All in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Fire here as well.
Motion to adjourn. Second. Motion was made by President Pro Tem Esposito, second by Councilman Castillo. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you, everyone. Hi, guys.